Hello team! Today we're going to draw a fidget spinner, and the fidget spinner is going to have bearings and a few parts, so we're basically going to have an assembly file. So here we go at the start. Same as usual, start with new, left click new again, and we go over here to standard millimeter IAM, which is basically an assembly file. So double click on assembly, and this will be our assembly template. If we go up to the left, we can either place parts that we've already drawn, or we can create new parts. So here we're going to create a new part and start our drawing for the body of our fidget spinner. So create, we have to give it a name. So F spinner, just to keep it going along. Okay. And we'll place our part, left click. And we'll start off with a sketch. So we select the XY plane as always, and there we have it. Okay team, first thing we're going to do is draw a circle. So up here, left click on circle. We want to snap it to the center. So we all know about snapping. You'll see that that's yellow. Hits the center, snap. Open up our circle. We want it 22 millimeters. So I'm just going to type 22. Enter, and there we go. It's locked on, dimensioned 22 mils. So I'm just going to scroll out, and that's going to be the center of our fidget spinner. 22 millimeters is the size of the bearing. So let's draw another circle up here. So just roughly 22. We don't have to be precise where we put it. And there we go. There's one of the legs of our fidget spinner. So now we have to hit a spam escape, and if I grab the center of this, you'll see it'll just move all over the place. That's not what we want. We need to lock this down a little bit better. So first thing I'm going to do is lock it onto the vertical plane. So I'm going to use a constraint. So this fancy fine line here is the vertical constraint. So if we tap on that, tap on the center of the circle, and tap on the center of this circle, we've got a vertical constraint. Hit escape because we're still in the constraint mode. Escape. And now when I grab this circle, I can only move it up and down. I can go to the left and right. It ain't going to move. It's going to stick to that plane, stick to that like glue. So that's exactly what we want. Now we have to control the height. So if we hit dimension, left click, center, click, drag out to the right, and I'm not quite sure what this dimension is going to be. I don't know. I might make it 30 to start off with, and then we'll check a little bit later on, make sure we're getting our dimensions close. So there we go. We've got our two circles, both locked in. They can't move. Fully constrained. If you read down the corner here, that's exactly what we want. Now I'm going to put a circle on the outside of this circle. So that's going to be the inside where the bearing goes or the weight goes. And the outside of the fidget spinner is going to go on the outside. So I'm just going to snap it again to that center, go outside, snap, escape, and I'm going to dimension on the cusp here. So I'm going to click from that circle to that circle. And I'm sort of thinking at this stage, 5 millimeters. Again, we might adjust this a little bit later on. So there we go. We've got our two circles. Now, when it comes to putting the other two circles down here, what we're going to do is get a little bit tricky, and we're basically going to get this circle and we're going to multiply it a couple of times. So to do that, we're going to hit circle, the geometry that we want to make. We're going to click on that. So that would be that and that. And the axis that it's about to rotate round, let's click axis, and it's going to be this axis here. So now you can see that we've got 6 of these circles going around, and that correlates to this number here. So we only want 3. So if we put a 3 in there, excellent. There we go. We've got our 3. So if we want to change the dimensions here, we only have to change this one here, and let's just change that to 8. They all expand. It's one of the benefits of when you actually copy something, you've got greater control. And there we go. So we're going to do a 3-point arc. So here we've clicked on the 3-point arc and we're going to snap to this circle and snap to this circle on the outside, bend it in a little bit and left click again and we're done. And we're going to do the same over here. We don't have to be too precise, but we just want to make sure we do snap onto the figure here. So again with this one, snap there, and bend it in. So there we've got the basics of our fidget spinner. Now, this line here is a little bit awkward, a little bit all over the shop. So we want this line coming at a tangent. So coming from here at a perfectly 90-degree tangent. And to do this, have a look at this constraint here. You've got a circle with a line, which pretty well gives it away. If you leave the mouse parked on it, it'll tell you what it does. So it'll join at a tangent. So let's get clicking. And if we click that and click this end of the line closest to this circle here, click there and then click the circle, bang, you've got a tangent and it shows you there by having that constraint. And we're going to do that, click over here towards the end, left click and click there, clickety click. I'm going to speed it up now. If you're having any trouble with this, just pause and watch it from the start again. Click and click. Right. We're starting to take a little bit of shape. Now, there's only one more dimension needed. We need to put a dimension in here for this arc. So let's hit escape, get out of the command for constraints and hit dimension. So if we hit dimension and click on this line here, so there we've got a millimeter dimension. I don't know, 2 left clicks and now I'm going to input some data. I don't know, 15. Let's see how that looks. That doesn't look too bad actually. Yeah, so I'm going to do a similar thing here. Click, double click, 15, and the same down here. Whoops, 15, and it's fully locked and loaded. Fantastic. So our next step, guys, is to get out of here and we're going to extrude this out. So finish sketch, click on this, all up here. We've finished our sketch. So just going to zoom a little bit with the mouse wheel and you should know how to scroll with the mouse wheel and move around. So now we're in our 3D menu, so extrude. So we've got the extrude command and we want to extrude a couple of things. We don't want to extrude that center, that's going to be a hole. So around the outside there, there's an extrude. There's an extrude, there's an extrude, and there's an extrude. So we've extruded out 10 millimeters. We actually want it 7 millimeters because that's the design of the bearing. So let's go over here. We could change it up here or we could change it here. Doesn't really matter. 7, okay, 7 millimeters. And there we've got the basis for our fidget spinner. Okay team, the next step here is we're going to do a couple of fillets. We're going to smooth this thing off a little bit. So I might just put a very small fillet. So click on fillet, gets this menu up. Now we're going to click on in here, basically all the insides of this circle. Well, basically the circle's where all the bearings go. Now that's 2 millimeters, is a little bit thick. We only really want to take the edge off it. So just put 1 in there, see what that looks like. 1's still a little bit much, maybe 0.4. I like that, apply. So we've just taken the rough edge off, gives a little bit of smoothness, looks a little bit better. So now we're going to do another fillet. We're going to do a half round fillet. We're going to round these edges off. So to do that, we hit the full round fillet. So it's selected. So side face 1. So this is the first side face, is this face. The center face. So that's basically the center. And when we want to select the other side, it's the reverse. So it's already prompted and moved down there. So we select there. And then it figures out what we want it to do. So let's just hold shift and look around. and it's done a full round fillet all the way around our fidget spinner. So that's starting to look nice. Apply, and we're starting to get the goods. Right now we could probably check, is it the right dimensions we want? It doesn't look too bad. We'll probably go back later on and change it up a little bit. But that's the basics for our fidget spinner. Right, now it's time to give this thing some bearings. So first thing we've got to do is switch back to our assembly menu. We're actually in a parts menu now. We're drawing a part like an IPT. So when we hit return, it's a bit like finishing a sketch. And we go back to our assembly menu, which is up here. So if we have a look here at design, if we go along, get to a thing here called bearing. So again, design, bearing, and we have a click on there. So it comes up with a few things. Let's just click OK. Wants us to save our assembly before we actually do anything. So let's call it the F spinner. Well, the F spinner body. We've actually already saved the name for our assembly. This is just the individual part that we're naming. Yes. Okay. Cool. So there it is, F spinner 1. And we've come up with our bearing generator. Now, this thing is very interesting. Not very intuitive, a little bit painful, to be perfectly honest. So let's follow nice and slow here. First thing we're going to do is we're going to select the cylindrical face. So that's the face there. That's the one where we want to put our bearing. So I've just done a left click there. It's set as 22 millimeters. The next thing we want to do is set the distance that the bearing is going to be, well, how wide the bearing is. And if we have a look down here, well, this one here actually has the width. So that dimension there says how wide is our fidget spinner, and we remember that that is 7 millimeters from previous. So let's put a 7 in there to a 7. Now we need to put the center of the bearing. Now I've already been and looked, and the center of the bearing is 8 millimeters for the one we want. So probably saved a little bit of effort there in that I already know a lot of the things that we want, but we had to input that data, and now we hit the lightning bolt. Let's update it. Fantastic, and it comes up with all these options of bearings that we want. Now in the real world, we'd probably spend a little bit more time on this, but I'm just going to go with the first in, first dress sort of thing. I'm going to go the A708, the CSN. There's a lot of other things you can do here, but let's just click this one. Let's have a click of that and click OK. Again, click OK, and there's our bearing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Lots of little ball bearings rolling around there. So can we grab that and roll it? Oh, now that's an interesting thing that's happened here. And this happens from time to time with the bearing generator, that it doesn't actually land the bearing. It's made it so that the bearing is on one plane, but it hasn't put a mating surface from here to here. So we're going to have to do that manually. So let's go back to assembly, and we're going to go to constraint. We're going to use a few constraints here, so probably a good thing that we get into it. Constraint. I'll just move this over here. And there's a couple of types of constraints. There's mating constraints, and then there's flush constraints. And what we really want to do is this flush one. We want to have this bearing flush with the outside of the fidget spinner. So if we click on that, then we click on the outside of the fidget spinner there. Then we click on the outside of the bearing. It goes pop. Now the thing is, a lot of times you do this and then you just go, yeah, that's exactly what I want. But remember to hit apply. And that's basically just stuck that in there now, that bearing. So if we were to grab that bearing and move it around, well, it won't move around. It just won't move around at all, basically because my part's grounded. And that's another thing. Hang on, let's just move it around there so we can see it. So our bearing's grounded into this fidget spinner. Now I want you to right click on this fidget spinner now and scroll all the way down here to grounded. And it's checked. So basically what that's saying is that that fidget spinner is grounded in our assembly. It can't move. So I do not want it grounded in the assembly. So I've clicked it. Now we can grab it and move it around. Grab that bearing and it's all good. Okay, so escape. Next thing we've got to do is put another bearing in here. We'll go about that the same way. So let's go back to design, bearings, do it a little bit quicker. Let's select our cylindrical face, click, click, 22 millimeters, and from previous, width 7, 8, and we're going with the first one. Okay, assemble bearing, okay. So again, when it's assembled the bearing in there, it hasn't actually locked it in all the way. It's floating around like that. So we're going to do the same trick again here with the assembly. We're going to hit constraint. We're going to hit flush. These are all left clicks. Flush there, with there, pop, apply, and close. So there, we've got our two bearings in. Now, rather than generate two more bearings, we can just copy this bearing and put it in a pattern. So let's go up here to pattern. We want a circular pattern. Okay, axis direction, doesn't really matter. Component, so this is the component we want, so we click on that. Now, what we've got to do here is select the point that we want to rotate around. So circular, and even if we just hit there, you can sort of see that that's pointing to the center of that circle. And bang, there we've got 4 bearings, where we actually only want 3. So we've got 4 there, let's call that 3. And the angles are a little bit out, so they're on 90-degree angles. So if you're pretty good with your mathematics, let's try 120 degrees, hit OK, and there we have it. There's our fidget spinner. We're starting to get very close now, guys. Okay, for my next trick, we'll get the fidget spinner and we're going to lock it down so we can spin it. So basically what we're going to do here is we're going to lock the center bearing down in the assembly. So if we're going to do that, I've already opened it up here. I better close that down. So the origin, this is the origin plane for the assembly. So we open that up and we can see there's an axis here. There's a Z axis, and I might just right click on that and left click visibility. So now you can actually see it's actually hiding. I'll just have to flip it around, but there's that Z axis there, right in the middle. But this thing is free to move around that axis. What we're going to do is we're going to lock it to that axis so we can actually spin it. So here we go. Let's go up to our constraint. And this time we're going to do a mating constraint. So we're going to lock this line here to the center of this fidget spinner. And I've got that hovering there. You can see the center of that fidget spinner. I'm going to left click. Now I'm going to left click there. I'm going to apply and shut that down, hit escape. So now this fidget spinner is locked to that plane. If we turn it round, we can probably start to get a little bit of rotation on it. No, it's going to make a liar of me, as always. That's moving in and out. Yeah, hang on. So now we're going to lock this. Now we're going to lock this fidget spinner down on this plane so it can't move in and out. So if we go up here to the XY plane, we don't want that one. We actually want that one. So I might make that visible just so we can see what we're doing. And so that plane there, I'm going to lock this fidget spinner to that plane. It'll be locked around that center. Then the only place it can rotate is around this center line here. So without further ado, let's give it a go. We'll use the flush one for this one. So we want flush, that surface with that surface, apply, close. So there we go. We've got our fidget spinner locked around. Now we can rotate it. Now obviously, having this all these things visible is a little bit of a problem, just takes away from its appeal. Also got a problem with that bearing actually not rotating around. We'll have to get to that too. So first of all, I'm going to right click here, visibility. So turned off the visibility to the XY plane. Going to do the same thing to the Z axis, get rid of visibility. So just making it look a little bit better. Now, what are we going to do with this bearing? I'll tell you what I'm going to do with this bearing. I'm going to grab this bearing and I'm going to lock it to this fidget spinner. So we basically want this rotating around locked to this body here. So how are we going to go about that? Very interesting question. Again, we'll probably do it with planes. So first of all, I'm going to get the plane to the bearing. So let's go to the bearing, get its origins up. And we've got the XZ plane. Let's make it visible. You don't have to make it visible, just doing this to make it a visual thing for you guys. So now I want to get that bearing and I want to lock that to this frame here, which happens to be the fidget spinner body. So F spinner 1, same plane, visibility. So now I'm going to get these two planes, I'm going to lock them together. So constraint. And you guessed it, we're going to do a mate. We'll mate those ones together. So that's that plane. And let's get a zoom in, make sure we get this one right. With that plane, apply. They've locked together. Right, so now we've got it rolling. We just have to hide our planes that we've made visible. Visibility, visibility, and guys, there you have it, your rotating fidget spinner. A few other little things we can do to this, we'll just get into. So lastly guys, we're just going to give this thing some color and give it a material. This is really a simple process, so I'll just get my mouse here, have a look up the top to material, click the drop down box, Autodesk material library. Problem I've got here, and this is one that took me a while to sort out. Before you select material, make sure you select the part of your entity that you want to assign a material, because if you don't select anything, you can't assign a material to it. So here with these little red lines here, we've shown we've selected it, left click on it, generic. Now I'm going to pick the first one because it's just easier to find. So ABS plastic, and the thing is that if you were going to 3D print this, good chance it'd be out of ABS plastic as well. So there we go. Now it's defaulted to smooth and shiny. If we wanted to change the color of this, give it a bit of a bright color. Let's go up to the color here, click, and we can basically select anywhere on this palette. So I'm thinking green. There we go. Tick. And there you have it guys. There's our green fidget spinner. We can spin it around. We can change the views. We can do a few other things, but that'll do for now. So well done guys. You've got your fidget spinner. Show that one off. Bye.